Fire. For many people, it means a warm thing, a very, very bright thing. But for you, the word fire means something different. What does it mean for you, Angela Tipton?
Yeah, so fire to me is ultimately about having the power to choose and live life on your terms. And of course, that looks like different things to different people. My version of a fire lifestyle probably looks very different than your version of a fire lifestyle, and so on. But ultimately, it is having that power to choose, feeling empowered in your finances, and having that control so that you can choose your career, so that you can decide if you want to retire early or do whatever else matters to you in life.
What is it that matters to you in your life?
Yeah, so for me, it's what I really focus on is time with my family and feeling empowered in the pursuits that I focus my time and energy on. So I'm one of those people that I don't think I could ever really retire early. It's an option I like to have. I could retire now if I wanted to, but I love what I do in my career and with the people that I work with. And I also love my family, but I couldn't focus on just one or the other. Both of them matter to me for different reasons. I love having time with my children and with my husband and with our extended family. And I love feeling fulfilled in the work that I do. So it's a nice balance of both. That doesn't mean it's always in perfect balance. I sometimes find myself rebalancing as needed, but I love to do that. I love to travel with my family. I love to teach my children different values and have different life experiences with them. So that's just a snapshot of what it looks like, but that's what matters to me.
That's kind of funny because you just said you don't really are a person who wants to retire early, but FIRE stands for financial independence and retire early. So it's actually in your word. How did you come up with it?
So I am actually part of the FIRE community. So I am not the first one to use this word. So
Ah, got it.
FIRE stands for financial independence, retire early. And I have always looked at that retire early portion as an optional piece. A lot of people in the FIRE community do because it's one of those where many of us are ambitious individuals and we love what we do, but not everyone wants to retire early. Sometimes we're very fulfilled by the work we do. And I am definitely one of those people. But that said, it's nice to have that option. I have worked in my career in the past where I worked with other people that were just truly not passionate about the work that they were doing, yet they found themselves stuck in a job that they felt that they couldn't leave for whatever personal circumstances they were facing. And I never wanted to be one of those people. I wanted to be fulfilled by the work I did and feel empowered to make a change in my career if and when I wanted to do that. And I have done that in the past as well. And it made me feel much more excited and fulfilled in my life. And so that's what I aim to do for others is inspire them to empower themselves in their careers and with their finances so that they can make some of those same choices that I was able to do. I truly believe the world would be a better place if more people could live life on their terms. And this is how I've done it and how I inspire others to do the same.
Great. So your way of life was not an ordinary one. You went to college and then managed to pay the whole college debt of $85,000. You paid everything in 18 months. How did you manage to do that?
Yeah, that's right. So let me start at the beginning because I think that's an important piece of that story as well. I didn't just wake up overnight and have $85,000 to pay off all at once. That definitely was was not what happened for me. As nice as I would have been, I was not that fortunate, as most people aren't. But when I first graduated, I actually had a total student debt balance between myself and my husband. I think we accounted to almost $130,000. Now, that first few thousand, we trickled away and paid off very, very slowly. In fact, when I first graduated with my bachelor's degree, I struggled to even make my minimum monthly payment to the point that I had to go on a graduated student repayment plan, much to my shame at the time and embarrassment. I always believed, as I'd been told, that I would be able to get into a career and I'd be able to pay it off like it'd be no big deal. Unfortunately, that was not my reality. But that said, yes, years later into paying this off slowly at a time, I did find a way with my husband to pay off that last $85,000 in just 18 months. And there were a few things that we did to make that happen. We took on some extra jobs, we trimmed back on our lifestyle and our spending. We consolidated our student debt as well, which is one of those kind of controversial approaches to paying off student debt. Sometimes loan consolidation is a great approach. Sometimes it's a bad approach, depending on the deal that is available to you. For us, it made sense because we were able to consolidate our student loans for an average interest rate that was much lower on average than what we were paying before. So, what that allowed us to do was put a lot less of our payment into the interest. So, it was going out every month and a lot more in total to the principal. So, we didn't change the base level of what we were paying. If anything, we increased how much we were paying every month, but a lot less of that money that we were paying went into that interest so that we were able to pay off the total balance a lot sooner. Sometimes loan consolidation isn't the best approach just because sometimes when you consolidate your loans, your interest rate gets much higher. And again, it depends on the circumstances. But yeah, we were able to pay off that $85,000, that last of it, in 18 months. And it really did free up so many of our finances so that we were able to do a lot more with that money in the long run, which was great.
After your experience now with college and the years afterwards, would you still tell young people to go to college? Is it still the right path at the moment with AI coming up and all of the other
Yeah,
uncertainty in the world?
I think that that is a great question. I think that's something that everyone should be asking themselves is college right for me? I think for some people, yes, it is. I think for others it's not. I will always advocate for continued education. It doesn't have to happen in a college, though, depending on what you want to do. There are plenty of great jobs, great careers that you can take on without that traditional college education. So, depending on what you personally are interested in, sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. For the path that I went on, it did make sense for me. And while I might have made some slightly different choices had to do it again, I would not change going to college for me just because it did make sense. Now, that said, it is a big thing to take on. Student debt is a huge burden and it has weighed so many people down and it's resulted in people having to delay some other life decisions, things like getting married and buying a house and having children, if those are things that are a priority to you. So it is one of those things that I think should be carefully weighed. The other thing that I think is really important too is that if you do decide that college is right for you, I do think education is always great, no matter what you're getting. But I think it's really important if you're focused on your finances, as I feel we should be, you want to choose a program that's going to help you in your career, not just be an educational program that is a nice to learn thing. There are all sorts of college degrees that you can get that just don't add a lot of value in the workplace. They're great. You've learned some really valuable things that are at least educationally, that are stimulating educationally, but don't benefit you in your career. So I think it's really important to weigh those things, think about what is important to you, but also make sure that you're going to get the value out of your education. It's a big investment, and that's really what it is. College is a huge investment and it can weigh you down for years afterwards. So it is one of those things that I think should be carefully weighed. It's hard to do when you're a young adult. You don't always know what you want to do in your career, but I don't think college is for everyone. I do think that college is right for some people, though.
Talking about career, you made quite the career path for yourself. In 2017, I think you opened your first business. And since then, of course, with fire and everything, what does it mean to have a career plan that aims at the fire lifestyle? How can you have a plan to do this fire stuff?
That's a great question, and I think that is really important to consider, and I can also say too that when I first graduated, I did not have fire or financial freedom in mind. I didn't even really know what that meant, to be entirely honest, but as you're starting to think through college choices, career choices, all of those things, it's really important to think through, okay, what kind of career is going to allow me to live the lifestyle I want? And the lifestyle piece is key. So, for instance, there are all sorts of really great careers that pay really well, but some of them require a ridiculous amount of hours. I'm thinking of your traditional lawyers and doctors. Some of them work 80 plus hours a week. Now, that might work fine for some people, but if family, for instance, is a priority to you and time with your children is a priority, that can be really hard to wait. Now, that's not to say that some lawyers can't find good balance or some doctors can't find good balance. I've known people that have been able to find good balance, but when you're building a lifestyle for yourself, when you're thinking through, how do I want to live life? What does my ideal day look like? You want to weigh those things into your decision. You want to think through, okay, is this career going to allow me to, if traveling the world is important to you, are you going to have that flexibility to travel the world? Are you going to be able to go to different places? If the answer is yes, and traveling is important to you, that career might make a lot of sense for you. But if it's one of those jobs or careers that is more likely to be have to be at a workplace nonstop and you don't have that flexibility, that may not be a great choice. And I understand too that sometimes when you first get into a job or a career, that isn't always immediately apparent. So for instance, one thing for me that came up in my life, I started my career on really the research and technical side. So I was a scientist in my the first part of my career, which I got into because I love science and what it offers to the world. But what I didn't think through is how at the time it just wasn't ideal for my lifestyle and for my interests. So for instance, when I started working, I was often working in a lab day in, day out, performing the same kind of experiments. I didn't have a lot of social time, and I had to show up to the lab to get that work because I had instruments and tools and things like that that I was using. So I didn't have the flexibility to travel. I didn't have the flexibility to work from home, things like that, that later on I discovered for myself were really important. So I did eventually make a pivot in my own career, decided that while I love the world of science, that research was not the best role for me, for my personality, and for my life design, for what I wanted to do with my lifestyle. So I made a pivot in my career into something that would enable me to have more freedom, more flexibility, that would allow me to work from home and things like that. So as you're thinking through your career path and your lifestyle, you want to find some harmony between that. And it doesn't matter if you value working more introverted type of work, extroverted type of work, you want to travel the world, you want to spend more time with family. What's really important is that you're asking yourself those questions. What matters most to me in my life? And what would allow me to create this harmony? What would make me feel fulfilled and happy in my work life balance, in my lifestyle, in my career? And I find that there are so many people that don't ask themselves those questions. They don't feel like they have the freedom to ask themselves those questions. But it's so important when you're thinking through, how am I going to achieve fire? How am I going to achieve financial freedom? What kind of career am I going to build? And how is that going to complement my lifestyle?
So you did talk about career change just now. When is it too late for someone to change their career? Is there even a specific age that you shouldn't change your career anymore?
I don't think there is an age that is a wrong time to change your career at all. I have worked with people, young, old, middle ages alike, and I have come across people that were making changes in their careers. And honestly, I found that of all the people that I have talked to that have made these changes, all of them were so much happier and they felt so much more aligned with the lifestyle that they were picking for themselves. So I don't think there is too young, too old. I think if anything, it's these people are at this point in life where they're asking themselves these really important questions. And it doesn't matter when you start asking that, but if you start to find yourself questioning, is this all that life has to offer? Is this career right for me? Start to get curious about what that means for you and ask yourself too, why am I asking this? Am I just not feeling very happy in my job? Is my lifestyle not suiting me the way I want it to? And don't be afraid to continue asking those questions and then ask yourself, okay, if this isn't ideal for me, what is more aligned with what I'm looking for in my life? And I don't think there is a right or there's not a wrong time. There's always a right time to ask those questions. There's not a wrong time to ask those questions, and there's never too old to make any sort of changes.
course, for everybody, there is this rule that life just happens. Everybody has to deal with certain things, and you had to deal with a chronic illness. What is going on with that?
Yeah, good question. So that's true. Sometimes life throws us curveballs and we just can't do anything about those circumstances. So you can't control the circumstances of your life, but you can control the choices and the intentions you make around that. So for instance, you had brought up my chronic illness. Yes, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 19 years old, which at the time was a huge hurdle, and it still is. It's something that I still struggle with to these days. It's not that I overnight just got better when I found this treatment. No, it's something that I continue to live with and have to account for constantly. And while I would not wish my illness on anyone, that's the reality of life, is that life does throw us these curveballs and we have to find a way to deal with them. For instance, one of the things I dreamed about as a kid is I always wanted to be an astronaut. That was my dream job. That was the thing that I wanted to do. And I realized after I got my diagnosis that there were certain things I would not be able to do. The astronaut program, for instance, is highly, highly selective and very hard to get into. So I knew that that was going to just be out. I considered joining the military. When you have an illness like Crohn's disease, you become ineligible to work to be in the military. So I knew that was out. So there were certain things that I could no longer do, but the things that I was still passionate about, science and working and business. So those were things that were still available to me. So yes, certain paths to me closed off, but other paths opened up in really interesting and intriguing ways and really set me on this path that I wouldn't have otherwise gone on had I not experienced that. So yes, I struggled and still struggle a lot with Crohn's disease. And it's one of those things that I would love to not have to deal with, but life doesn't work that way. Yet there's so much opportunity within that. So one thing I really emphasize to people is to be open about your mindset and your opportunities. Challenges to me are just something that are really more of an opportunity to have you explore a different path that you might not have otherwise looked at. So be optimistic about your circumstances as much as is reasonable. We all experience these feelings of struggle and despair and loss. And those are all very normal feelings too. Allow yourself to feel those things, but find the opportunity through that chaos and you will be on a much better path forward. It was definitely opportune for me. As much of a struggle as it's been, it's presented more opportunities than that I wouldn't have considered, that have honestly made me so happy with the life path that I'm on now.
Wow, I can only imagine the struggles you've went through. And then on the other hand, you have your husband, you have family, you have kids, you have your business demands or your business career. How do you balance all of that?
It's a lot to balance, and I will say this, that having a supportive partner really makes a huge difference. It really does. So my husband is really good about helping me with the kids and with the house and balancing his career with my own. And honestly, it's just one of those things that we just communicate. If anything, I feel like we over communicate to make sure that we're both on the same page and we know what needs to happen with our home and with our kids and everything. So that's a big piece of it. I do frequently find myself rebalancing, as I kind of hinted at before. Sometimes I am so focused on the work that I'm doing that certain things with the family get deprioritized. And then sometimes vice versa. Sometimes I'm so focused on the family that certain things with my business get deprioritized. So it's continuing to find that balance, asking myself often. In fact, I have this alarm on my phone that reminds me to ask myself this question: how am I feeling? Sometimes that answer is I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling overwhelmed because I can't meet my family demands or because I can't meet my business demands. So I think through that and I figure out, okay, what is missing? What is out of balance? Does something need to get dropped? Does something need to get reprioritized? And then I have that conversation with my husband, with my family, and we talk about how to make it work. So really it's having that unit together, working together is so, so critical. And not to say that it's perfectly in balance. Like I said, there are times it's out of balance and we have to resync things. It's an ongoing, sometimes daily pursuit in some ways. But that said, having all of those pieces in my life are so important and so critical. And I love having all of those. And I wouldn't want any one of those things to go away.
Wow. How empowering. So, where can people go to keep up with your life, to get to know you a bit better? Where's the place to meet Angela Tipton?
Yeah, so the best place to keep up with me is at my website. It's fireyourcareer.com and it's spelled just the way it sounds, Fire, yourcareer.com. And I like to share all sorts of tips that I've learned about finances and how I've been able to build a successful career, how you can secure a fire lifestyle, how you can use goal setting to be really the difference maker in your success. So I share all sorts of tips there all the time. I publish new posts on a routine basis, so there's always fresh content there. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, just Angela Tipton. And then you can find me also on Instagram. I have an email list as well if you want to sign up to my weekly updates. So I'm always happy to have a chat with people on any of the platforms that are best for them. And I'm on most of the major ones. So yeah, those are a few places you can find me.
Wow. Thank you so, so much for your time.
Thank you. Great to be here.